All right, let's talk about one of the most powerful, and let's be real, one of the most intimidating concepts in all of programming, the monad. It's this word that gets thrown around, and it's always wrapped up in all this mystery and academic jargon. But what if I told you it's actually way, way simpler than you've been led to believe? And you've got to hear what the legendary Douglas Crockford says about it. He calls it the curse of the monad. It's this weird thing that happens where the very second you finally get it, you suddenly lose the ability to explain it to anyone else. It's this frustrating, almost funny programming paradox. So today, we're going to try to do the impossible. We're going to attempt to break that curse right here. We're going to pull back the curtain and hopefully make the monad finally click, once and for all.
I mean, if you go and search for a monad tutorial, you will find an ocean of articles, blogs, videos. And yet, for so many of us, the idea just doesn't stick. So why is that? Well, as Crockford points out, it's not because monads are some impossibly complex thing. The problem is how they're taught. So let's start by just tearing down that flawed approach.
Okay, first things first. The biggest myth we need to bust is this idea that you have to have a PhD in computer science or master some super specific, complex language just to get in. That conventional wisdom, it just creates this huge wall that keeps people out. And you know what? It's completely unnecessary.
So yeah, the official gatekeepers, they'll tell you, oh, to understand monads, you must first master Haskell and then go learn category theory. Crockford, well, he has a much more direct approach. His rules? Have some chicharrones and have some huevos. In other words, just have the guts to ignore all those intimidating prerequisites.
And this analogy is just perfect. You can walk into a restaurant and order a burrito, you can eat it, you can love it, you can even learn to make an amazing burrito yourself, and you don't need to be fluent in Spanish to do any of that. It's the exact same thing here. You can totally understand and use the monad pattern without getting a degree in its academic history.
So now that we've cleared away all that intimidating stuff, all the unnecessary rules, what's actually left? Well, what's left is the simple secret, the core idea that once you see it is just shockingly straightforward.
So, what is a monad? Seriously, forget every complicated definition you've ever heard. At its absolute core, a monad is just an object. That's it. Think of it like a special kind of box or a wrapper that's designed to hold a single value.
But how do we get a value into that special box? Well, that's where something called the unit function comes in. You can just think of it like a constructor. It takes any ordinary value, a number, a string, whatever, and it wraps it up inside our monad object. It puts it into the monad world. That is its entire job. All right, so our value is now safely tucked away inside the box. How do we do anything with it? This right here is the most important part, the bind method. Bind is a special function that lives on the monad object itself. And its whole purpose is to let you reach inside that box, take the value out, do something to it with a function, and then handle the result. Let's just walk through it real quick. Step 1, you start with a normal value, say a string. Step 2, you use the unit function to wrap that string up inside a monad. Step 3, you use the bind method to apply some other function to the string that's inside, maybe a function that makes it uppercase. And step 4, and this is the magic, the bind method gives you back a brand new monad with the new value inside, which is what lets you chain these operations together one after another.
And that's it. No, really, that's the whole thing. A wrapper, a way to put a value in, and a way to apply functions to the value that's inside. As Crockford so perfectly puts it, ecce mano, behold the monad. This simple little pattern is the entire secret.
Now, to be super official about it, for this pattern to technically be a monad, it has to follow 3 mathematical rules, or axioms. We're not going to get lost in the weeds here, but the third one is the one that really matters to us. It's the axiom of composition, and it's the rule that guarantees that chaining, doing monad.bindf.bindg, is always going to work in a reliable, predictable way.
And this is where it gets really, really cool. Because this abstract pattern, it isn't just some dusty academic idea. It's something that tons of us are already using every single day, probably without even knowing it.
Just think about how common JavaScript libraries work. You see this pattern all the time, right? You take an object, you call a method on it, and that method returns the object back to you so you can immediately call another method and another and so on. It creates this really clean, readable flow of steps.
Does that look familiar to you? That pattern of just stringing methods together one after the other. If you've ever used something like jQuery or a lot of modern frameworks, I'm willing to bet you've written code that looks almost exactly like this.
Well, guess what?
That is the monad pattern in action. Crockford calls it the Ajax monad. For years and years, developers have been using this exact structure to write cleaner code, which means we've been using monads this whole time without even calling them that.
But hold on, the story does not end there. There is one more massive connection to make, and it has everything to do with one of the most fundamental tools in all of modern web development.
Anyone who's worked with APIs on the web knows this pain. Trying to manage things that don't happen right away, like fetching data from a server, can get so messy so fast. You end up in this nightmare of nested callback functions that are impossible to read.
And this is the exact problem that promises were invented to solve. A promise is an object that basically acts as a placeholder. It represents a value that doesn't exist yet, but will eventually. So you could say it's a container for a future value.
And how do we actually work with promises? We chain them together. We fetch data, and then when that's done, we process it, and then when that's done, we display it. Take a look at that structure. It's an object with a method that lets you apply a function to a future value, which then returns a new object you can chain off of. Does that sound familiar? And this leads us to the final, absolutely mind-blowing punchline from Crockford himself. Great balls of fire, it turns out that promises are monads. This essential, foundational tool for managing all the chaos of the web, a cornerstone of modern JavaScript. It's built on the exact same simple pattern we just figured out. So, the big takeaway is this. The monad was never some scary ivory tower concept we couldn't understand. It's a simple, elegant, and really useful design pattern that's been hiding in plain sight in the tools we use every single day. And that just leaves you with one last question to think about. What other powerful ideas like this are out there, hiding right under our noses, just waiting for us to discover them?